Hi, I'm Sam, and welcome back to my art journey. Today I'm sculpting a little hedgehog, one of those projects that's been sitting in my sketchbook for ages. I finally decided to make it, and I'm so glad I did. Here's a quick look at how he turned out. Round, textured, and full of character. I think he might be one of the cutest pieces I've made so far. I'm starting off with a simple base, using aluminium foil and a bit of wire to form the inside shape. This keeps it nice and light and saves clay too. I roughly shape the wire into a chubby little hedgehog body, round at the back and tapering towards the nose, then attach it securely to the base. I then fill out the body to give him some volume. Once I'm happy with that, I roll out some air-dry clay and start covering the foil form. I smooth it out with some tools, just enough to get a nice even surface for the details later. It doesn't need to be perfect. This is just the foundation for all the textures coming next. Once the base layer is on, I start adding small pieces of clay to build up the shape. First, I form the little legs, just simple rounded shapes pressed into place so they blend nicely into the body. I'm not adding detail yet, just blocking out where they'll go. Then I start shaping the lower part of the head, adding a bit of clay underneath to form the jawline and give it that gentle curve leading into the nose. Next, I start working on the face. I use a small bulb tool to press in two little dents where the eyes will go. This helps make sure they're even and set in the right spot. Then I roll two clay balls and gently press them into place for the eyes. I always love this step. As soon as the eyes go in, the sculpture starts to have a bit of personality. Once the eyes are in place, I move on to shaping the nose. Then I start adding some rough fur marks around the face using a sculpting tool and a stiff paintbrush, just to break up the surface a bit. I also build up a little more clay on the top of the head to give it that slightly fluffy look, blending it in with the rest of the face. Now I'm adding the ears. Just two small pieces of clay pressed into place on each side of the head. I shape them with a ball tool, keeping them round and slightly curved forwards. Hedgehog ears are quite small, so I make sure they blend softly into the head without standing out too much. Once they're shaped, I smooth around the edges and refine the head a bit more before moving on. You can already see the front feet here. I added those earlier but somehow missed recording that part. They're just small oval shapes pressed into place and blended into the body. Now I'm moving on to the back feet, shaping them the same way and making sure they sit naturally against the base. Next, I'm making the little twigs the hedgehog is holding. I roll a thin strip of clay around a piece of wire. This helps keep them sturdy and easy to shape. Then I press them gently onto the main twig that's already in his paws, blending the joints so they look like they belong together. Here I'm shaping the firefly. I kind of wish I'd spent a bit more time on this one. Maybe added some wire legs to make it look more realistic. Now I'm rolling out the clay for the quills and pressing them in place, starting at the bottom and moving upwards. Each row slowly changes the look, giving the hedgehog a more defined back. Looking back, I really should have used some reference photos instead of sculpting purely from memory. Even with the quills in place, it still ends up looking a bit more like a guinea pig than a hedgehog. Placing the quills is pretty time consuming, but it's completely worth it. Each quill helps it slowly resemble a proper hedgehog. At this point, I wasn't even sure if the quills would hold, especially when I apply wet paint later, as I'm new to sculpting, but I thought I'd try anyway. The quills are all in place. Now I'm working on the base to give it a bit more depth and detail, shaping it so it feels more grounded. And that's it. The sculpture is finished and ready for paint. I can finally start bringing some colour to it. I start painting with a really dark grey-blue wash. I'm taking my time, carefully working it in between all the quills so the colour settles in to the tiny crevices. The base wash might take a while, but it's really worth it. It settles into all the small gaps and shadows, giving depth to the sculpture and making the colours on top look more vibrant and realistic. Now I'm layering in some browns, focusing on the areas around the face and body to create more natural variation. I'm keeping it subtle so it blends well with the dark base and highlights the shape of the hedgehog. Now I'm painting the base colours, starting with the eyes, then the nose, followed by the ears and finally the feet. This lays the foundation before adding any finer details. Now I'm adding the pupils through the eyes, giving them a bit more character. Once that's done, I'll move on to highlighting the tips of the quills to make them stand out. Now I'm painting the base, getting in messy with the colours. There's no need for perfection here. Keeping it a bit rough helps it feel more natural. I'm painting the firefly with a base colour of black and adding little white dots to the hedgehog's eyes. After that, a dark brown wash goes over the entire piece to unify the colours and deepen the shadows. Here I'm adding a second layer of highlights on the quills, lighter than the first. I'm only focusing on the tips so the colours blend nicely and feel gradual rather than harsh. On the firefly, I'm adding some iridescent paint to the wings and a bit of glow paint to the body. For the hedgehog, I'm adding more detail to the eyes with a lighter brown to give them a bit more depth and character. I'm applying glue to the twigs and sticking on some moss. I actually reapply it off camera because I wasn't happy with the colour. It needed to be a bit darker to look right. I also add glue to the snout and attach a few paintbrush bristles for the whiskers. It's a tiny detail, but it really gives the hedgehog some personality. I'm coating the whole piece with matte varnish and adding glossy varnish to the eyes and firefly. For some reason the matte varnish actually dried glossy, but it still looks fine in the end. And that's the finished hedgehog. I'm really happy with how it turned out. I have lots more planned and loads of ideas for future projects. This is just the beginning of my clay art journey. If you enjoyed watching, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. It really helps me keep creating these little clay critters.